is the moment.
Violence is not part of the peaceful protest, but it is part of the movement.
Enough is enough.
No longer will we remain silent.
It was very cool and peaceful and everything, and then it just flipped really fast.
We had some individuals who just was angry and frustrated and just felt like, talking was not the answer.
One guy walks by with a bottle, throws it at the window shatters.
If I'm not over here messing up my community, then what are y'all doing?
For 3 days now, protesters have gathered peacefully in Raleigh and across North Carolina. The question, whether the peace will again be shattered as people try to have their voices heard. Thank you for joining us. I'm Deborah Morgan.
And I'm David Crabtree. And in just 2 hours, Raleigh will begin enforcing a new curfew with the intentions of preventing violence and destruction. Over the next half hour, our team of WRAL reporters will cover the controversy surrounding this curfew and bring us a look inside just one of the small businesses reeling after rioters smashed their way in and set the business on fire. Plus, we'll take you up in Sky 5 for a look at the protest underway at this hour.
And on the ground, our team is spread out covering the currently peaceful gatherings and marches in downtown Raleigh. Joe Fisher is joining us now live. Joe, tell us what you are seeing. You were with the protesters last night, and then you saw it turn violent. Tell us about what you're seeing right now.
Deborah, right now, after this whole crowd congregated at the state capitol grounds, they're now marching back down Fayetteville Street toward Hargett Street. We were actually down here outside of the Wake County courthouse here on Fayetteville Street for about an hour as these protesters were gathering right around the 4 o'clock hour. This has been extremely peaceful for about 2.5 hours now. This started with about 40 people marching around 3:30 this afternoon. It has grown in size over the past couple of hours as we have several hundred people now marching straight down Fayetteville Street as we cross over Hargett Street at this very moment. They're chanting, "Hands up, don't shoot." And we did just hear from one of the people on a bullhorn saying that they're going to march down this direction, and they do plan to march back to the state capitol grounds at some point. So we're now walking with the protesters after talking with several of them in the past couple of hours, saying that they wanted to come out here for a third night and protest police brutality and everything that we've been talking about over the past couple of days in terms of racial injustice and the death of George Floyd, as they now start chanting, "I can't breathe." And we're going to try to catch up with one of these protesters here. Sir, how are you? Do you mind talking to us about what brought you out here tonight? Is this your first protest?
Yes, it is.
Talk about why are you down here?
Well,
personally for you.
Personally, this is history for us, and it's been going on for a long time. And it's come to this here, but I'm glad to see everybody of color could do this walk together and get along together.
We just came from the state capitol grounds, and so many people were saying this needs to remain peaceful.
Yeah.
One person actually started to come out into the middle of the street trying to get the crowd to come out, and one of the protesters said, "Not today, like that's not what we're here for." Are you in agreement with that?
Yes, I'm agree with it. Not today, not no time.
Why is it important that this stays peaceful? Because this crowd is growing right now.
Well, voices, can be heard, though, but we don't need the violence. Or let the voice speak for itself. Let the people speak.
Thank you so much. And we know that Raleigh, the city, has a curfew tonight at 8 o'clock, so we're less than 2 hours from that. Do you plan on following that curfew and getting inside?
Oh, I got to work in the morning, of course.
Okay, so you're out of here. Ma'am, do you know about the curfew tonight? I'm trying to get a pulse if people have heard about it.
I've heard about the curfew.
And do you plan to follow it?
Yes, I plan on following the curfew.
Very good.
And we don't want violence. We want peace. We want peace. We want justice. We want peace. We don't want a problem. We want peace.
Thank you so much for talking to us, and we're going to continue to walk with these protesters as we head down Fayetteville Street. We'll break back in if anything significant does happen. Back to you.
For now, Joe Fisher reporting live in downtown Raleigh as day 3 of the protests continue. Thank you, Joe.
Protesters in Durham shut down the Durham freeway for a while today. A few dozen people marched to 147, blocking all the lanes. They said they would only move when the sheriff and police chief agreed to meet with them to discuss policing and poverty in black communities. After about a half hour, the organizers said both leaders agreed to a meeting. The protesters left. A leader of today's group explained why he felt peaceful protests are the best way to go.
I feel like to get actual change, people should stop breaking glass and start breaking social norms. I think people should stop burning down buildings and burn down the system that's oppressed.
Protesters are expected to gather again tonight in Durham. So far, all the protesters have been peaceful in Durham. The folks there say they want that to continue. In Fayetteville, law enforcement preparing to meet with a group of protesters marching from Fayetteville State to the Market House. The historic site did see damage during the weekend. Fayetteville police have also been tracking threats made on social media. The department says there will be zero tolerance for crime tonight.
Multiple cities in our area hope curfews will help limit violence and rioting. We are less than 2 hours away, as Joe told us, from the start of the new curfew in Raleigh. We'll have the details on that in just a minute. Fayetteville will also be under a curfew starting at 8. That's in place until further notice. Clinton and Wilson's curfews start at 8 as well. And Salemburg just announced a curfew starting at 8. Is Raleigh's curfew too little too late? And could it create more unrest? We will see in the next few hours tonight. WRAL's Cullen Browder is live in downtown Raleigh with details on that order and some frustrations from folks. Cullen?
Right, Deborah. So no one is supposed to be on Raleigh streets tonight from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. with a few exceptions. So businesses like grocery stores, restaurants will have to close during that time. But for the boarded up businesses like this, the curfew comes too late. When peaceful protests in downtown Raleigh deteriorated into vandalism and looting, small businesses took the brunt of the violence.
We're just hurt and devastated on what's happened in downtown.
Alan Horwitz is a third-generation owner of Reliable Jewelry and Loan. His family business saw looting Saturday and again Sunday. Do you feel like the curfew should have been in effect even Sunday night?
Absolutely. I just feel they knew this was coming. I think something should have been done earlier. More enforcements, the National Guard.
Hindsight is 20/20. You know, it's a difficult decision.
Raleigh Mayor Pro Tem Corey Branch understands the second guessing. While he supports the protest message, he feels a curfew is now needed to help quell the violence.
We have to have some sense of order as we move forward, in the sense of how we handle our rage.
I definitely get they're trying to control a lot of the late night rioting.
But Raleigh native Thomas Morgan wonders if an 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew will work.
Seeing around the country, people are still out way past it.
As frustrated business owners clean up, they hope a curfew and strategic patrols will help protect them this time.
But where were you when we were getting broken into? There should have been something down here protecting us. I just don't see any excuse for it.
So we know that not everyone's on board with the idea of a curfew. We know some Raleigh City Council members were hesitant. The ACLU also put out a statement saying, quote, combined with the aggressive show of military force, curfews repeat the violence and brutality at the root of the protest. We reached out to Raleigh police for their comment on not only the business criticism, but also enforcement through the curfew. We have not heard back. David and Deborah.
Cullen Browder live in Raleigh. Thank you, Cullen. Well, here's a closer look at Raleigh's new curfew. Starting at 8 tonight, no one will be allowed on the streets unless it is a medical or essential emergency. Certain public safety and city workers are exempt, as are journalists. Breaking curfew could lead to misdemeanor charges and up to 60 days in jail or a $1,000 fine.
Well, as we just heard there from Cullen, one of the most heartbreaking casualties of the riots in downtown Raleigh have been the longtime family-owned businesses that have served the community for generations. As we have watched the past 2 nights, some have simply just been taken out by vandalism and looting. WRAL's Amanda Lamb talked to the people who run Kimbrell's Furniture today. You were there as you watched it literally being dismantled and burned last night, Amanda.
That's right, David. I want to give you a perspective on where we are. So last night we were about a block away and we saw this fire right here on this spot. It was actually a chair. Looters had broken into the store, second night in a row, pulled furniture out and set it on fire on this sidewalk. The people who run this store have been here and they are just absolutely heartbroken. They say the store's been here for 105 years and this type of thing feels personal. For a second night in a row, a fire was set by looters at Kimbrell's Furniture in downtown Raleigh. Were you scared?
Definitely.
Manager Rodney Tillery was there.
It was basically like a horror story. It was just chaos. It was glass breaking, things on fire. It was just chaos.
They are trying to get rid of the smoke. Saturday night, looters set a bed on fire inside the store.
In a way, it's like you've almost personally been violated.
Carol Faircloth has worked at the store her entire adult life. She says the vandals have not just hurt the business, they have hurt the employees and the people in the community who rely on the store as a place where they can still buy affordable furniture.
We've been a good part of our community, and I just don't understand why we're getting targeted.
Now, both Faircloth and Tillery wonder when this will all end.
I just don't know how any of this makes sense.
Try to calm them down and just tell them, I mean, this is wrong.
And there's a difference, obviously, between peacefully protesting and doing damage.
Most definitely. I mean, if you really want to get your message out, we have to do it the right way. We have to do it together.
And you can see they've got the reconstruction crew here trying to clean up from the fires. They boarded up the doors. They're really hoping this doesn't happen again tonight, David. And, you know, we came across Rodney Tillery early this morning at this fire, and we asked him to talk, and he couldn't. He just shook his head. He couldn't. And then he did end up talking to us today. He said he's been up for 2 days. He's been guarding this store, and he's still here. We just saw him a little while ago. So this is personal to these business owners and the people who work here and run these businesses.
105 years. Remarkable. Amanda Lamp, thank you. As we go to break, protests underway in Fayetteville right now. Police said things had become, quote, criminal just before 6, and arrests are being made. We will continue to follow what's happening in Fayetteville and all around the viewing area.
I want to show you the live images that we are getting into our newsroom here at this hour. It is now about 6:15 on Monday. This is the third day of protests in Durham. That was the first city to start in our area with the protests on Saturday. The organizers out there told us that they were going to remain peaceful, that hashtag Durham, hashtag Bull City, this is what we do, and it has remained peaceful. Now they are near the Carolina Theater and the Durham Convention Center. You can see the gathering there on the left-hand side of your screen. A couple of hundred people there. Earlier today, the protesters shut down the Durham Freeway for about half an hour. Now the protesters have gathered right there near the Carolina Theater. We will continue to keep an eye on this, David.
Peaceful in Durham. That hasn't been the case in Raleigh over the past couple of nights, and some are now calling for the police chief to resign. Leaders from 6 local social justice organizations came together today condemning the actions of Raleigh police over the past 2 nights. They called for a stronger board to oversee RPD and to end what they call over-policing. The leaders of this coalition said they are calling for the immediate removal of Chief of Police Cassandra Degg Brown if their demands aren't met.
No longer will we sit idly by while the citizens are brutalized. No longer will we remain silent while she remains silent to the injustice.
The end of over-policing in the Black and brown communities, to stop building police sites in Black communities, and to stop the over-policing and terrorization of both Black and brown communities.
The coalition is asking for members of the Raleigh community to attend tomorrow's council meeting to demand change.
You may have noticed flags flying at half-staff today. It's part of a day of mourning for those who have died from the novel coronavirus, and that includes more than 100,000 Americans and nearly 1,000 North Carolinians. The governor says this is an opportunity to remind ourselves that our death count is not just a number. It represents people, communities, and families in mourning.
And as North Carolina approaches 1,000 deaths from coronavirus, WREL is remembering some of the victims. We want to show you the faces to honor the people behind those numbers. WREL's Amanda Lamb has that story.
To the loved ones of people who have died from COVID-19, they are not statistics. Adrian Grubbs, a sanitation supervisor with the city of Raleigh for 17 years, was the third person to die in North Carolina from the virus.
He was a good man. He was a great man, a loving husband, a devoted father.
And since then, the deaths have continued. 29-year-old Dolce Garcia, an interpreter at UNC hospitals in Chapel Hill, died May 26th.
Who would give everything to her family and friends, and never, ever ask for anything in return.
Like Garcia, Montgomery County School Resource Officer Bud Fong, a father of 5, dedicated his life to helping others before COVID-19 took his life.
Bud was just somebody that everybody flocked to. I mean, he was just, if Bud was around, you couldn't have a frown on your face.
In photographs, 76-year-old Judy Harward, a former Durham City Councilwoman, always had a smile on her face, especially when she was with her large, loving family. She was buried in Maplewood Cemetery after her April 3rd death from COVID-19.
It could be my mother, it could be anyone. If it could be said, just please be careful. This hit home, obviously, for all of us.
And now it's hitting home for all of us. Not numbers, but real people. People who were loved. People who mattered. Amanda Lamb, WRAL News.
And tomorrow we'll meet more people who have passed away from COVID-19 as North Carolina nears that milestone.
Turning to weather now, and it is June 1st, so it's the unofficial start to summer. And boy, the activity is already heating up out there.
Oh, yeah.
As we're looking at hurricanes and tropical systems.
Yeah, we've had 2 so far, 2 named storms. We had Bertha impact our weather last week. Now we have tropical depression number 3 as hurricane season starts today. It's June 1st. And let's take a look at the big picture, what's happening around the Atlantic basin. Now, this time of year, we don't really see systems developing this far out in the Atlantic. It's typically closer to home, which we have seen already with Arthur and Bertha. Now, this is the development of Tropical Storm Cristobal in the coming days. Right now, it's tropical depression number 3. This is the Yucatan Peninsula. This is the Bay of Campeche. And of course, this is the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, the storm is over the Bay of Campeche. Sea surface temperatures are in the upper 80s. The winds aloft are suitable for intensification. It is likely to become a tropical storm. These are the numbers. The first advisory from the National Hurricane Center. Top winds are at 30. It's moving west-northwest at 7. Gusts up to about 40 miles per hour. It will intensify. Now, at 5 o'clock, I showed you the Hurricane Center track, which has it meandering here and then eventually moving to the north. This is a look at the European model. So over the coming days, we'll take it through 6 o'clock on Tuesday. It's still over water. The European model and both the American model as well take it over land. Now, according to the European, the system moves south, but then we see a new generation of a low pressure system over the Gulf of Mexico. We'll watch to see if that actually occurs. There's Friday evening at 6 o'clock. The storm begins to move to the north as some upper level winds are interacting with this, helping it to move to the north. Saturday evening at 6 o'clock. There's Sunday evening at 6 o'clock, closing in on Louisiana, and then by Monday making its way toward the Texas Gulf Coast. There are many uncertainties about the storm. We will watch it in the days ahead to let you know what's going on. We don't see an impact here right now. Maybe remnant rainfall down the road. Evening fitness planner, mostly sunny skies, 75 right now, 73 by 7, 68 by 8 o'clock. It'll be a cool night. Lows back in the 50s. We have 55 this morning. Fayetteville did as well. Fayetteville, you'll probably be about 59 tonight. And then highs tomorrow. We had 78 today in Raleigh, 78 in Fayetteville. We'll be in the mid-80s tomorrow. The humidity begins to go up, and wow, it really goes up by Wednesday. And so does the heat. 93, upper 80s for Thursday, a chance for storms through Saturday, and then Deborah cooler by Sunday and Monday with highs back in the 80s.
Boy, quite a difference. At least we had such a beautiful day today, and hopefully tomorrow too. Thank you, Mike. All right, as we go to break, we want to show you more protesters, this time in Fayetteville. There is an 8 p.m. curfew in Fayetteville, but the protesters are out here right now. We're going to have a live report from Gilbert Base when we come back.
Mentioned earlier in the newscast, protests underway in Fayetteville right now, where there have been some arrests. WRAL's Gilbert Base joining us live with the latest. Gilbert.
David, I'm in the middle. I'm in Murchison Road, middle Murchison Road. First of all, let me show you the police presence that's down here. This is just south of Filter Plant Road, and they're right about Cumberland Street on the Merck. And then let me show you the protesters who are back here right now. They're down on the ground here, sitting here, because we're told that one of the protesters, KT is his name, was tased earlier, and he was arrested. So he is going to. They say they're going to stay here in the middle of the road until he's released. And we have. Tell me what's happening here. And I thought this protest was supposed to be not going on tonight, but it changed.
Yes, the protest changed. Apparently, Trey Rogers had a death in his family. We give condolences to them. And it was canceled. And then all of a sudden, someone else decided to organize this protest. It's not an organized protest from any organization. And everyone came out to walk the street. So technically, this is not. It was silent, and then we got to the end of the road where they said we cannot go no further because it was canceled.
It's my understanding that one of the protesters, KT, was tased and arrested?
Yes, he was tased and arrested, and they're not leaving this street in Bronco Square. They will stay here until he is released.
Okay, we appreciate you talking with us. So you see the crowd here. Michael, show the crowd. They're sitting down, nonviolent protests right here, but they are blocking Murchison Road, which is a major thoroughfare here. And they say they're not going to leave until the protester who was arrested, KT, is released. So we'll bring you more of this. We'll have more of this, David, of what's happening here in Fayetteville in terms of the protests coming on.
All of that happening with the curfew happening in about an hour and a half. Gilbert Base, thanks for joining us. NBC Nightly News is up next. We're monitoring the president, who is going to be speaking within the next half hour or so. And then we'll have our news tonight at 7.
We will be following the protests all across our area throughout the evening. Join us tonight for our news at 10 on Fox 50 and at 11 here on WRAL as well, as we leave you with this live picture of the protests happening in downtown Raleigh. Have a good evening.